It looked like a pile of metal parts forced together in a hurry. Soldiers joked about it. Officers doubted it. Even the men who carried it often cursed its weight and recoil. Yet, in the tight streets of Europe's cities, this strange British weapon quietly did what the famous American bazooka could not. It stopped tanks where rockets failed. It worked where space was tight. And it saved lives in places where one mistake meant death. Stay with this story till the end, because the truth behind this ugly weapon completely changes how we understand battlefield success. When the Second World War began, tanks ruled the battlefield. Thick armor, heavy guns, and fast movement made them terrifying weapons. Infantry soldiers felt helpless when steel monsters rolled toward them. Early anti-tank rifles quickly became useless as armor grew thicker. Heavy guns were powerful but slow, hard to move, and impossible to hide in cities. What soldiers needed was something they could carry, something that could destroy a tank up close, and something that would not kill them in the process. The Americans and Germans answered this problem with rockets. The idea was simple. Fire an explosive rocket from a tube, hit the tank, and let a shaped charge burn through the armor. On paper, it was brilliant. The American bazooka was light, easy to understand, and powerful enough to knock out many tanks of the time. It quickly became famous and is still remembered today as a symbol of infantry, anti-tank power. But war is not fought on paper. When the British were shown the bazooka during a live test in North Africa, the weapon worked. It hit a captured German tank and punched through its armor. Everyone could see it had potential. So when Britain declined to adopt it, many later assumed pride or stubbornness was the reason. That assumption is wrong. The real reason was far more practical. By the time the bazooka appeared, Britain already had its own solution in production. It was called the PIAT, the projector, infantry, and it did not fire rockets. It did not look modern. It did not even look safe. But in cities, ruins, and tight spaces, it proved something important. Sometimes the ugly tool is the right tool. The PIAT came from a different way of thinking. British engineers knew that rockets had a major problem. When fired, they produced a violent backblast. This blast burned anyone standing behind the weapon. It kicked up dust, smoke, and fire. It revealed the shooter's position instantly. And most important of all, it made firing from inside buildings extremely dangerous. In open fields, this was a risk soldiers could manage. In cities, it was deadly. Urban fighting was chaos. Streets were narrow. Buildings were close together. Walls collapsed. Smoke filled the air. Soldiers fired from windows, doorways, and stairwells. A weapon that required open space behind it was often useless. Worse, it could kill the man using it. The PIAT solved this problem in a brutal but clever way. Instead of rockets, it used a powerful spring and a spigot system. The bomb sat on a metal rod. When fired, the spring launched the bomb forward. There was no rocket flame shooting backward, no fireball, no deadly blast zone. A soldier could fire it from inside a room, from behind a wall, or from a narrow alley. This single feature changed everything in cities. The PIAT was born from desperation. Early in the war, Britain's infantry had almost nothing that could stop tanks at close range. Anti-tank rifles bounced off armor. Grenades required suicidal bravery. Sticky bombs were dangerous even to the men throwing them. Engineers knew they needed something better and fast. The core idea came from an officer who experimented with spigot mortar. The design was crude, but it worked. Later, a small secret research group refined it, combining the spigot launcher with shape charge technology. The result was the PIAT. It was heavy, it was awkward. Cocking it required enormous effort. Soldiers had to place it on the ground, step on it, and use their full body weight to compress the spring. Many cursed it during training, but once cocked, it could fire a bomb capable of punching through tank armor. On paper, the bazooka looked better. It was lighter. It was easier to use. It could be reloaded quickly. Its effective range was longer. Many soldiers preferred it for these reasons. But cities changed the rules. In urban combat, distance shrank. Tanks appeared suddenly at street corners. Shots were taken at extremely close range. Hiding mattered more than range. Surprise mattered more than comfort. The PIAT allowed soldiers to stay hidden. A PIAT team could wait inside a ruined building, listen to a tank approach, and fire at the last moment. The lack of backblast meant the shot did not light up the room like a torch. Dust still flew, but there was no burning flame pointing directly to the shooter. In the confusion of urban fighting, that difference could mean survival. Bazooka teams did not have this advantage. When a rocket fired, everyone knew exactly where it came from. In cities, this often meant immediate return fire. Machine guns, tank cannons, and infantry weapons would pour into the firing point. Many bazooka teams did not survive long after firing. There was also the issue of reliability. Early rockets were sensitive. Moisture, dust, and cold could cause failures. Cities were full of rubble, water, and debris. A failed shot at close range could be fatal. The PIAT, while crude, was mechanical. When it fired, it usually worked. This does not mean the PIAT was loved. Soldiers complained about its recoil. When fired, it kicked hard. Poor positioning could injure the user. Reloading was slow and exhausting. Accuracy required training and nerve. Veterans warned new soldiers of one rule: you only get one shot. If you miss, you may not get a second chance. Yet time and again, in city fighting, the PIAT delivered results. In North Africa, Sicily, and Italy, PIAT teams learned how to use terrain. In Normandy, where villages and towns became deadly traps, the PIAT showed its value. British infantry knocked out tanks from windows, hedgerows, and ruins. Some reports credited it with a surprising number of tank kills during the early stages of the invasion. The weapon also spread beyond regular armies. Hundreds of PIATs were dropped to resistance fighters across occupied Europe. For underground fighters operating in cities, secrecy was everything. A weapon that could be fired indoors without a massive backblast was ideal. In ambushes, the PIAT turned narrow streets into killing zones for armored vehicles. One of the most famous examples came during a desperate urban battle where British forces were surrounded. A single soldier used a PIAT at close range against enemy armor, holding a key position under heavy fire. His actions became legendary, and he was awarded one of the highest honors for bravery. Stories like this were repeated across Europe. The PIA was not perfect. Against the heaviest tanks, frontal armor was often too thick. Soldiers had to aim for sides or rear plates. German crews added extra armor skirts to reduce the weapon's effectiveness, and as the war went on, heavier tanks appeared that challenged all infantry weapons. But this was true for the bazooka as well. In fact, later conflicts showed that early bazookas struggled badly against newer tanks. After the war, improved versions were developed because the original design simply was not enough. The PIAT, meanwhile, was quietly retired. It had done its job. Looking back, it is tempting to judge weapons by comfort or appearance. The bazooka looked modern. The PIAT looked ugly. One felt advanced. The other felt improvised. But battlefields do not reward beauty. They reward survival. In cities, where space was limited and danger came from every direction, the British weapon matched the environment better. It was designed around real conditions, not ideal ones. It accepted discomfort in exchange for control. It traded ease of use for concealment. That trade saved lives. This is why the uglier British alternative outperformed the bazooka in cities. Not because it was stronger, not because it was smarter, but because it fit the fight. Weapons are tools, and tools must match the job. In open fields, rockets ruled. In tight streets and shattered buildings, silence, surprise, and safety mattered more. The PIA gave soldiers those things, even if it made them work harder. The lesson goes beyond one weapon or one war. History is full of examples where simple, uncomfortable solutions outperform elegant designs when reality sets in. The PIAT reminds us that effectiveness is not about looks, it is about results. If you want to understand history beyond myths and famous names, keep exploring stories like this. And if this story helped you see the past differently, support the work by staying connected and sharing what you learned.